we go. Good morning, Selma. It's a little bit after 10 on Saturday morning, and I'd like to say good morning, buenos dias, and sasrikal. Thank you for joining me. As I said last night in my preview spot on Facebook, you've heard from me in terms of what my platform is on the video that I've had. It's been on Facebook, it's on my website, Scott for Selma. And the three major parts of my platform are what I've been working on for 8 years. And that's public safety, that's economic development, and that's also quality of life for our city of Selma. But now I want to hear from you. Today's question and answer session is an informal time for us to get together, for us to talk, and for me to hear from you. I've already received some great questions, and we'll be going over those. But if you're on the fence and you're watching and you don't know whether you want to ask a question, that's fine too. See how I answered these? And if you have some more, you can always ask questions later. You can get on my Facebook page, Scott for Selma Mayor. You can go to my website, scottforselma.com, and you can leave your input and your questions by emailing or directly on Facebook. But today, the idea is for us to interact. And, you know, I've been on council for 8 years, and I've heard from so many of you, and that's what I'm about. That's what I'm here to do, is represent you. Today is not where I have all the answers and, you know, give you firm, concrete answers. Today is just as much a listening session on my part as it is on yours, but it's going to stress the interactive part, us getting together, because as your representative, it is my job to do your will, to do what you want me to do, and take that back to the council for the city. Because you're the boss. You're why I'm doing it. You're the citizens. And I'm a citizen too. So I'm doing it for myself as a citizen, for you as a citizen, for your families, and for the next generation. You know, we hear a lot of things about politicians. They don't care, you know, they're career politicians, they're in it for themselves. And that may well be true at some point. But I think the most important thing is to care. And at the city level, we are all living in this same city. We all have the same concerns. And we need our elected officials to represent those concerns. So I want to say good morning to Cecilia, and I want to say good morning to Joan Nelson. I see that you're tuning in. Thank you very much. And we'll be getting to our questions here in just a little bit. And want to thank people for their interest and your interest in your town. It's really important to show that interest and to kind of stay on top of the issues. And that's why I'm here. You know, people have to work. You know, before I got on council, I didn't know everything that was going on with the city. And that's why someone like me is here too, that you can talk with and, you know, you can bounce things off of and quite frankly, find out what's going on in the city. And I think that's a major element of communication. So I want to say thank you again for everybody. And I think what I'm going to do is I am going to start with the questions right after I say good morning to Diane and Maria and Jennifer Anderson. And since Jennifer is saying hello, why don't we start with Jennifer's excellent question first. So her question was, what are some of the major changes that you would like to make in the next 4 years? And, you know, it's a great question. And I think these changes can have many different aspects. as the Selma City planner said at a recent meeting, the city has lost several contracts and deals because of our inflexible zoning downtown. That's a problem. We don't have zoning and code that has been updated. That is a major change I think we need to do. And why? Because a few of these developers want to put in commercial and habitational downtown. They want to have people where they live on top and they do business on the ground floor, which is a great idea, but our codes and our zoning just don't allow for that in some areas. So we are going to change that as a group and as a council. And we want to do that because that's going to lead to more of a renaissance downtown, more renovation. The more people we get downtown living here, as well as doing business here, the better a tax base we'll have. We'll have more people here. That will help public safety, having more people downtown. And we'll be able to create more of an economic center by having that here. Where does the city come in on this? Well, like I said, we are going to revamp the zoning and ordinances that the city currently has and really hasn't updated in the last half a century. How are we going to do this? Well, I don't know if you heard me talk about it in the past, but the city has been out of compliance with its housing element since 2006. We didn't have enough high density numbers. And that was keeping the city from getting an SB2, a Senate Bill 2 grant to revamp the planning and zoning that I was just talking about. That was blocked because we didn't comply with that housing element for 14 years. We do now. We have complied. The city received the letter from the HCD, the housing department, saying that we're in full compliance, meaning that that grant money is going to be available to the city along with some other grant money to make that happen. You see how this all really fits together. There are lots of interacting pieces, and so by complying with this housing element, now we're able to free up these funds to come in and revamp the codes and zoning to put in to incentivize developers to come downtown, to have more flexible codes. And that is a concrete way that, we on the council will be able to make that major change. Another change, as Jennifer was asking about, is a fire station. We're going to be getting a fire station. It's coming. So I think you want a council that is going to be fiscally very vigilant in terms of the cost in which that's built, the collaboration, the excellence, to make sure that all of those elements come together rather than just, putting something up and overspending on it. We want to make sure that this fire station is built on time and on budget, and especially in collaboration with the men and women, the brave men and women who put their lives on the line. I mean, have you seen what they've been doing with all the fires in our city, as well as throughout the state, the forest fires? Selma's one of the first ones on the list that other agencies come to go to these forest fires because we have such an excellent department. So Jennifer, I want to say thank you for your question, and I'm going to use that as a segue into the next question from Kathy Aguilera. And her question is, how do we support and shop small business, mom and pop shops, so we can keep downtown alive? I think that really goes with what I said earlier about how important it is to make sure that our downtown has a renaissance and that we are taking care of the small business owners. At the concrete level, there's CARES Act money, and there is also money that's been budgeted by the City Council for making your buildings look better, a building improvement fund. These are concrete steps that the council is taking in order to help mom and pop shops who have frankly suffered. Many have just gone out of business due to COVID. And so I've been a big proponent of getting this building improvement fund in front of the council with funds, money for people to apply for in order to help their businesses due to the downturn in COVID. That's 2020. I mean, the reality of 2020 is we're all kind of talking about COVID. I really hope that we can get a vaccine for this virus and we can move on and it doesn't hurt anybody anymore. And after that, Kathy's question is still very valid. How do we encourage our small businesses in downtown Selma and in Selma in general to thrive as a city? And I think I touched on it earlier, which is incentivizing. You know, we can issue proclamations at the council level and say, hey, we really support you, and that's all well and good. But, you know, let's put some teeth behind this. Let's make it real at the city council level by advocating for programs that financially incentivize our mom and pop businesses and our developers, as I just talked about with making the codes more flexible with mom and pop businesses. I think there has to be funding and building improvement fund and things like that to incentivize local business. I think I have talked with several of you about what Merced did with their CARES Act money, which is government money for COVID-related expenses. They had a really great idea. They took some of that CARES Act money and the city bought gift cards from local businesses and then gave them out to citizens to spend at these local businesses. Those are creative things that we can do as a city as well. And I can tell you, our city is looking at that. Our economic analyst that the city hired, Tracy Tosta, she is looking at that every day. That's her job, is to look at ways of incentivizing and supporting our local business. We had, back to the codes, we had someone come, to the council or to a council member and ask about the potential for putting in a type of business down there, and because of the inflexibility of the codes, again, it was no go. It's going to be a uphill climb. No. What we can do at the council level is to make sure that we are business friendly. And Kathy, we want to make sure that the mom and pop shops survive, because let's face it, they are part of what makes Selma Selma as well. There are all sorts of stores here, and we are grateful to have these larger stores of the larger chains. People go there and shop, and it's convenient rather than having to go to Visalia or Fresno. But some of these businesses make up our town, the fabric of our town. They've been here forever. They're people we know. It's kind of like local politics, isn't it? You got to know the people on your council, and you got to know that they're working for you. The mom and pop businesses are the same thing. We see them at the stores. We live next door to them, and we really have to encourage that, because they are part of our fabric. Just like Lincoln Park and the Veterans Memorial that we're going to be doing, it's so important to make sure that we have that we retain that individual character of Selma. What makes Selma Selma? Well, I would say it's our buildings downtown with their individual looks. I would say it's our parks. I would say it's our mom and pop businesses. There's several that come to mind, and it is so important to have that in our town. So thank you for that question, Kathy. And I'm just going to get a sip of water here as I look for our next question. And I want to say good morning to Andy Gonzalez and Solomon Barella and Marie G. And you guys have come up, all of you, with some great points and some great questions. Why don't we move on to Marie G's question next, which is, why is there no consistency with ridding our town of abandoned non-working vehicles or upkeep on houses? Why does our town continue to have trash issues on Golden State? I wish our little town had consistent standards for beautification. Those are 3 questions. They're great ones. They're interrelated, and they're so important to address. Marie, that for 8 years, my platform, again, has been public safety, economic development, and beautification and standard of living, and making our town a better place to live in, and how our town looks is so important and so linked to how it looks. I can tell you from the council level that when I started 8 years ago, we were struggling to have one code enforcement officer, just to hire one. And I think you people that know me know that I'm very strong economically. I'm a small business owner. I'm very strong on living within a budget, living within our means, but absolutely maximizing what we can do with that. And by maximizing, I mean providing the most services to our citizens. You know, there's people out there that really, frankly, want just things, buildings. And I say to that, people, people, people. That's what I want to emphasize, and that's what we need in our city. They are the ones that make our city go. They're the ones that clean up our city. They're the ones that formulate the policy, and they're the ones that are our citizens. The most important, the bosses, you. Getting back to the question about the non-working vehicles and the upkeep on the houses, you know, the obvious answer, the first answer is pride of ownership. People need to have a, pride of ownership. But it also goes back to code enforcement. If people don't have that pride of ownership, what can the city do to step in? Well, the city does have codes. The city has codes that regulate how your houses look and how your business looks. And it's interesting how everything we're talking about is kind of interrelated today, because I talked about that building upkeep fund earlier. When businesses don't keep up their buildings, oftentimes it's not because they don't want to, it's because they don't have the money, because they're struggling, especially in 2020. And that's when it's good for the city and the state and the federal to step in and supplement and provide those funds. With code enforcement, we started with none. Now we had one, and we just hired our second code enforcement officer last year. So can you imagine being the code enforcement officer in a city of Selma for 25,000 people? What a huge job. I mean, that overwhelming. And that's why the council added another code enforcement officer. So they each split the city in half, and they handle that part of the city. No one wants to fine people for not keeping up their properties. No one wants to give out fines, but unfortunately sometimes it's necessary. And code enforcement's job is to look for that and to make sure that people comply and make sure businesses comply. Trash issues on Golden State, my goodness, it is always an issue. And really the trash issue has, for 8 years, there has always been trash there. It gets better, it gets worse. There is something called the Golden State Corridor Project that is coming. It's funded with your tax dollars. It's called Measure C, and it's a $46 million project that will revamp Golden State from Fowler through Selma to Kingsburg. And that is going to be a really important project for our city, and that will definitely help. We have some more people that have joined us. Gene Betancourt, good morning. John Terry, good morning. Baljit Miguel, good morning. Diane Gaitan, all of you, good morning, and thank you for tuning in. We're talking right now about the thorny issue of trash and the way our city looks and our consistent standards. And I was just saying, from the city level, what we can do, we have 2 code enforcement officers. And, I think in the next 4 years, we'll kind of go back to Jennifer Anderson's point, what are you going to do in the next 4 years? I would like to see code enforcement, if we don't add another code enforcement officer, which I would love to do if we had the funds, I would like to see code enforcement work on weekends. There are lots of things that happen on weekends in our city that code doesn't see for the reason that they're not here. So I have been a vocal advocate for this, and I hope if you'll vote for me to be your mayor and your representative, I will definitely push for code enforcement to be around on a weekend. So we can move on that, and we can have those issues that pop up on weekends addressed by code enforcement. I'd like to say, again, thank you. And also, I want to acknowledge that was also Solomon and Andy's question as well that I kind of discussed with respect to Marie's question. And I'd like to move on after that to Tony Santion's question. How are we helping the homeless community? They were cleared out of the area near the freeway ramp, but where did they go, and what resources does Selma offer? This is a huge, huge issue in Selma. Homeless encampments are a huge issue. Let me start by saying I go to church every Sunday when I'm legal, when the governor allows us to, and I know that there are brothers and sisters, and I have compassion for everyone, and I want to help. This problem is more than just compassion. As your representative on the city council, I have to have your interests at heart as property owners, as business people, and as business owners. So the city has done lots of activities to help the homeless, and it's not just the city, it's at the county level. It's an issue that affects every city, and it affects every county, and it's affecting the state big time. And the issue that it can come down to with the homeless oftentimes is not that there aren't places for the homeless to go, but oftentimes the homeless don't want to utilize those places. So let's use the Floral and 99 off-ramp basin. Let's use that as an example. That was around for several weeks. I got call after call, as I'm sure my colleagues did on the city council. This is out of control. And it really was. It was a huge basin. If you drove by there, I'm sure you saw there was a vehicle down there. It was like a community. And people were saying, what are you doing about this? Well, I'll tell you, the city wasn't able to do anything because that is highway. That is the jurisdiction of CHP, and that is the jurisdiction of Caltrans. And due to COVID, CHP and Caltrans, they were not doing anything. They were not coming out. They were overwhelmed as well. So what we did at the council level, we went to our state senator, and we lobbied our state senator to go to the governor and for relief, to go to CHP and Caltrans. And the first thing that they said at Caltrans was, where are these people going to go? And you're just going to, if we just chase them off, are they just going to pop up somewhere else? So you're not the only one with that question, Tony, and many other people. And in terms of our city resources, we have WeCome, we have Selma Cares. There are organizations. We have the MAP Center, where people can go and actually get transported and get transportation to appointments to help them if they have issues of homelessness or drug addiction. The resources definitely exist. And Dahlia, I agree with you. We are all in this together. That's why we're doing this today. Again, this is not like me coming up with answers. This is me listening and you providing as many answers as you do questions, because you're telling me what's important, and I really appreciate that. And we're working through this together, and I can tell you, this is what I'm going to be working on the next 4 years. So let's get back to that off-ramp basin. So CHP and Caltrans agreed to go out there because it was unsafe. There were issues. There were lots of crimes going out there. There were drugs. There were issues of sexual issues. Bad things happening. And it had to be stopped for the safety of the people who were living there. People were walking in the streets and on the roads. It was a life safety issue. So before that happened, last Friday, the county went out and let the people know that they were going to have that homeless encampment shut down. Now, Caltrans works with Kings View on contract. They work to counsel people on relocation and relocation strategies. Kings View went out there last Friday before that they were relocated. And I also wanted to mention that this encampment was in front of many businesses, and those businesses had reported having some break-ins and harassment of their customers. It was really affecting our whole town, as you well know. So back to what happened, the process of relocating. Kingsview, the contract relocation specialist where the county went out and counseled folks on Friday. And on Monday, that's when Caltrans went out and they cleaned up the homeless encampment. Now, it should be noted that Kingsview had gone out to this basin twice, 2 times before. They'd gone out to the basin 2 times before to ask folks to relocate to the Fresno Mission, the Super 8 Motel, which the city has under contract, where the homeless can go during COVID. I don't know if you've driven back there behind Carl's Jr. The county is also working on getting other motel space for homeless because the capacity is just not there and it does need to be expanded. And Kingsview reported back that the majority of people they talked with said they don't want to go anywhere. And I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying here. That's the problem. What do you do in a free society when you have folks that want to camp and there is no legal means to relocate them in a safe situation? You have the situation that you had before, and then you disperse it, and unfortunately, they go somewhere else. Because it's a free country, and freedom of movement is a cherished liberty for everyone. That's what we're dealing with. And I'd love to say that, hey, there's a silver bullet and there's a solution out there, but I can tell you from the city perspective that, again, when I'm on city council, I'm looking out for the citizens and the business owners, and we're not going to have these encampments that destroy the locations on city property. And if it's on other property, we're going to be asking to have that done as well. And that's with compassion that I say that. I appreciate the question. That was really important. And I hope that I addressed some of your concerns. And I hope to hear from you again. Remember, come on back to my Facebook page after today, Scott for Selma Mayor. You can come to my website as well, Scott for Selma, and you can email me questions as well. I want to get to Vicky Delgadillo's question now. Vicky, thank you for your question. Vicky's question was, what are your qualifications, Scott, your education, your experience, and why should we vote for you? Well, it's obviously not because of how good I am on Facebook. No, I'm kidding. I'm getting better. I'll keep practicing. I've been on city council for 8 years. 3 of those I've served as your mayor. I'm a graduate of UC Berkeley. I moved here to Selma after my wife and I got married and bought a business here. We got married in 1993, and we rented space here in 2004, and then bought the old JCPenney building in 2006. I moved around a lot as a kid, and this has really been my hometown. I've been here longer than I've been anywhere else. So I have roots here. Not as deep as my wife, Rose Gallardo Robertson. She was born and raised here. Let me tell you just a little bit about her. She grew up here, and we used to just come over here and spend weekends with my in-laws. We ended up getting a house over here, and on that house, the same land where we got that house, she used to pick grapes as a kid. Now that's unbelievable. Talk about hard freaking work. I've learned an incredible work ethic from my wife and from my family. And my family's accepted me, my in-laws, as one of their own, just as you have. Selma, you've accepted me as one of your own, and I can't thank you enough for that. And I am one of yours. And I got your best interests at heart. And I think that's I think that's the number one qualification, right? I care. That's the big thing. I'm not going anywhere. I care. And I want to help also usher in the next generation of leaders. Look, this isn't permanent. This isn't a job. Local city government is not a permanent job. It's something that I've always thought of as kind of a volunteer function where you come in and you do the best you can. You have issues, and my record speaks for itself. And I urge you to go to my website to look at my record, and I will talk to you about it. But that's what I'm running on, my record and my care for our city. I really do love our city, and I want the best for it. And I think it's really important that we have these debates. Sometimes what people will say, there's friction sometimes. And there is. When people have different ideas, those ideas are going to rub up against each other. And I think good, clear debate on those issues, I think is important. And I love what we're doing this year with Selma. We have so much good change in the offing. We have good people. We have a lot of people running for office, and that is a really good thing. So vote for me, 1, because I care, 2, because I have the record, and 3, I'm not done. I have more to do. There are some issues. There's the homeless issue we just talked about, the new fire station, getting downtown revamped. We've got residential in the northern area. We got residential in the west area. All of these have to be overseen by a board that's pro-business and pro-citizen, and that's what I am. So I want to say to everybody, thank you very much for listening to me today. But most of all, thanks for the questions. Thanks for your interest. And I look forward to hearing from you again in the future. If anyone has any other questions, let's do it again. We'll do it some other time. Just let me know. So this is Scott Robertson, and I'm running for the first elected mayor position in Selma on November 3rd. And I would be honored and humbled to have your vote. Thanks very much, and have a great rest of the weekend.